Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. So here's a question. Why does a nation's unresolved wartime past, something from decades ago, still seem to dictate its politics today? Who forms alliances, even who gets to be leader?
It's a fascinating question, and it's exactly what's happening in Tokyo right now. The immediate focus is this political crisis hitting Japan's ruling party, the LDP. They've just seen their coalition partner of, 26 years? Komeito walk out, and this whole domestic power struggle, it's completely tied up with these ongoing battles over how Japan remembers World War II.
It really is striking. We're not just talking about history as some, academic debate off to the side. It's genuinely shaping the headlines. It's messing with the coalition math, and it's even deciding who might be the next prime minister. We really want to unpack how these things connect.
Exactly, because these memory wars aren't just talk. They're actively reshaping who governs Japan. And to get it, you really have to see it as, what we're calling the crisis triangle. Three things pushing this turmoil. The fight over the historical story, the cold, hard numbers of needing a coalition partner, and this huge backlash from all these money scandals.
Okay, let's start with the politics, that immediate shift. Because Komeito leaving the LDP, that alliance was solid for 26 years. It ended October 10th. That wasn't just losing a partner, right? It feels like losing an anchor.
That's a perfect way to put it. Komeito, drawing its support mainly from this pacifist Buddhist group, Soka Gakkai, they were like the LDP's institutional brake pedal. They were that moderating voice. They stopped the LDP, especially the more nationalist wing, from just pushing through major constitutional changes or, really aggressive historical revisionism. They kept things more towards the center.
Right, so Komeito walks out, and the LDP immediately needs someone else to get their majority. They turn to the Japan Innovation Party, Ishin. So why does swapping Komeito for Ishin suddenly make someone like Takeshi Sanae, a real hardline conservative, a potential PM?
Because Ishin is it's a totally different beast politically. I mean, yes, Ishin talks about being anti-establishment, demanding clean government, fiscal discipline, and we'll definitely get into that. But crucially, they're also strongly for constitutional revision, especially putting the self-defense forces, the SDF, explicitly into the Constitution. So you swap out the pacifist Komeito for the revisionist Ishin, and the whole center of gravity of that potential government just lurches to the right. The brake is gone, replaced by an accelerator, ideologically speaking.
Which makes the LDP's own internal fights over ideology suddenly much more important. Like what we saw with Ishiba Shikero. Even as he was getting pushed out as leader, he put out these personal reflections. It seemed like a direct shot at where the party's heading now.
Oh, it was absolutely a warning. Very public. Ishiba didn't just talk about the past vaguely. He deliberately connected Japan's wartime failures, things like no clear civilian control over the military, a weak government, a media whipping up nationalism. He linked those directly to the risks today. He was basically saying, look, we could repeat these mistakes if we let this kind of uncritical nationalism take over again.
And then you have Takeshi Sanae representing the complete opposite view. For her, the war wasn't a moral failing. It was more like political bad luck.
Uncompromising is the word. Her historical revisionism is stark. She was a key voice telling former PM Abe, don't use words like aggression and apologies. She argues politicians today just have no right to judge the wartime leaders looking back.
She sort of reframes the whole thing, doesn't she? As if just fighting the war was honorable, never mind why or how.
That's exactly the rhetoric. She poses this, pretty provocative question. Would it have been better if Japan had just become a colony without resisting, framing it as resistance, not aggression? And she really hammers this point. The only mistake the leaders made was losing. She actually said, if Japan had won the war, Japan probably wouldn't be blamed with anyone now, and those who started the war would be heroes.
Wow. That's pure political messaging for the base, isn't it? But doesn't that risk making the LDP seem, toxic to more moderate voters, even if it fires up the right wing?
It's definitely a calculated risk. There's an electoral logic here. You see, the LDP has been bleeding some conservative support to these really hard-right populist groups, like Sanseido. They even use the old wartime term, Greater East Asian War. So Takaichi's very vocal revisionism. It's designed to pull those voters back, consolidate that right-wing flank, keep the LDP dominant on the right. It's using ideology as a tool to win votes.
Okay, so if the headlines and maybe the main story focus on history driving this, what else is going on? What non-ideological stuff are we maybe missing if we only look at the memory wars?
Yeah, we absolutely have to bring it back to that money politics part of the triangle. The history debates are loud, sure, But the actual trigger for Komeito leaving, it was something much more, well, grubby, but maybe more damaging to public trust. It was this massive rolling anger over the LDP's slush fund scandals.
Yeah.
Just a total lack of transparency about their funding.
Right, the slush funds. How did that scandal directly force Komeito out?
Well, the LDP got caught basically not reporting huge sums of money, often from things like party fundraising events, donations from organizations, effectively operating these big off-the-books funds. Public outrage was immense. Criminal investigations started. And Komeito, which generally holds itself to a, let's say, stricter standard financially, they just couldn't risk being seen propping up a scandal-tainted LDP anymore. They had to jump ship to save their own reputation before the next election.
So Komeito leaving wasn't just about Takaichi's views on visiting controversial shrines, for example. It was more about political survival, staying clean.
It was probably both feeding into it, but the scandal was the immediate, unavoidable pressure. And here's where the coalition math bumps right into the money politics. This new potential partner, Ishin. They've made clean government their absolute top demand in negotiations. They're using the LDP's weakness as leverage.
And what specifically is Ishin demanding for their support? What's the price?
The big one, the non-negotiable, seems to be a ban on corporate and organizational donations to political parties. Now, if the LDP agrees to that, it completely changes how the party raises money and who has influence. It's a huge concession, totally unrelated to historical debates that the LDP might have to make. Trading financial power for coalition stability, it just shows how much these non-history factors are driving things.
And we should probably push back a bit on the idea that the public is just marching in lockstep towards constitutional revision too, right? Even if the LDP leadership shifts right, does the average voter actually want Takaichi's full agenda?
No, the public view is much more, well, nuanced isn't quite the right word, but it's specific. Polls consistently show that, yes, many voters support some kind of change to the Constitution, but dig deeper and it splits. People overwhelmingly support naming the self-defense forces in the Constitution just to make their status clear legally. But, and this is key, they get very nervous about weakening the actual pacifist clause, Article 9. They want clarity, maybe, but not necessarily a more militaristic stance. It's pragmatic revisionism, not really ideological revisionism for most voters.
Okay, let's talk practicalities. The real-world limits on a future leader. This kind of historical revisionism, it instantly creates foreign policy headaches, doesn't it? What are the diplomatic minds Takaichi or someone like her would have to navigate?
Oh, the fallout is immediate. You can basically take the temperature of relations with Seoul and Beijing by watching Japanese domestic politics on this stuff. Anytime cabinet ministers show up at the Yasukuni Shrine in August, the shrine that honors convicted war criminals, boom. Instant diplomatic friction. It really limits any leader who wants stable ties or needs regional cooperation on security.
But didn't Takaichi herself show some interesting maneuvering recently? Suggesting maybe she gets these limits, even with her strong views.
Yes, that was telling. It shows she's politically smart, not just an ideologue. Despite her past visits to Yasukuni, she recently made a point of sending an offering, like a ritual gift, but not visiting in person. That's classic political hedging. Signal to the hardline base, I'm still with you symbolically. Signal to everyone else, including foreign governments and maybe Ishin, I can be pragmatic when I need to be.
So even if the rhetoric gets really heated, there are still institutional guardrails that limit how far things can actually go.
Absolutely. Institutions matter hugely. They're the ultimate gatekeepers. Changing Japan's constitution, the bar is incredibly high. You need a 2/3 majority in both houses of the Diet, and you need to win a national referendum. That makes it almost impossible for any government, even one led by someone like Takaichi, to just ram through really controversial changes to history or the Constitution quickly. It forces compromise. It requires convincing the public.
So for you, listening to this, wanting to track how this plays out beyond just the daily headlines,
Yeah.
what are the key things, say 3 practical markers we should all watch? How do we know if this is just talk or real change?
Okay, good question. First, keep a really close eye on the LDP-Ishin coalition deal. What exactly does the LDP give away to get Ishin's support? Is it that ban on corporate donations? Do they fiddle with sales tax plans? Does Ishin get veto power over certain policies? The specifics of those trade-offs will tell you how much ideology is being sacrificed for pure political survival.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Second marker probably involves that symbolism and foreign relations piece.
Exactly. Watch the anniversary messaging and shrine visits. Come August or other key anniversaries, do cabinet ministers send offerings, or do they make personal appearances at Yasukuni? That's a very clear signal about whether they're prioritizing the base or prioritizing stable diplomacy.
And the third marker has to be the Constitution itself, right?
Yes, the actual text of any constitutional amendment bill. If they manage to introduce one, what does it actually say? What clauses are they trying to change? That's where you see if it's just symbolic tinkering, like formally naming the SDF, or if it's a real attempt to weaken Article 9, the pacifist core. The legislative details matter most.
So putting it all together, Japan's wartime history, that memory, it's clearly still a live wire running right through the heart of its politics today. But who governs next and what they actually manage to do, that's going to be decided by how this whole crisis triangle interacts.
The history narrative, yeah, but also the unavoidable maths of coalition building and this huge public pressure about money and corruption. And that's maybe the most important takeaway. The narrative battles, the history stuff, it gets all the attention, it's dramatic. But for you trying to understand what's really going on, remember that actual policy often gets decided way down in the weeds. It's shaped less by the loudest shouting and more by these institutional hurdles and the messy, necessary compromises you have to make just to keep a government together. That's often what determines what really changes and what doesn't.
Thanks for listening. Follow us for daily insights into world affairs. And don't forget to like, comment, and share.